Hello everyone and welcome to Cappuccino with HR. My name is Rudi Bauer, and after 40 years in business, I'm 100% sure that the success of companies is directly related to the passion of the people working for these companies. With the Cappuccino of HR, we created a format where we really invite people, it's HR leaders, it's recruiters, it's talent acquisition guys, and we're talking about all the different kind of topics, and the range is going from AI, of course, to new work, to leadership, and all the challenges along the way. Yeah, hello and welcome to a new episode of Cappuccino with HR. And as you probably recognize, my setup is a little bit different than normally the studio setup because I'm in my home office because of some private issues today. So I'm doing it from my home office. And today I'm really delighted to have a young lady as my guest, Lina Pfeiffer. I met her at a kind of award ceremony, where she was the winner of the Zeiss Woman Award. I think it was last year, if I'm right. And we met there, and it was so inspiring to talk to her, to have a discussion with her, and to get some kind of insights about her thoughts, about her ideas, and the project itself. So we are anyhow talking about that. So welcome, Lina. It's nice to have you.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
And there's another special thing, not only the background and Lina as guest. I want to quickly, as it's the 25th episode of Cappuccino with HR. So we started last autumn and we did a lot of episodes. So today is number 25. And there is a really little elf in the background who is doing an amazing job and an amazing work. It's Ivana. And Ivana, as you are switching anyhow and doing the director thingy on this podcast, I would really ask you to put yourself on stage quickly.
Hi.
Hi,
Hi,
Ivana.
Rudi. Hi, Lina.
It's a pleasure, and it's a big thank you, which really goes to you, because all what's there and what was built up, it was your idea, it is your setup, it is a hell of a lot of work in the background. Thank you so much for doing that on a weekly basis, so it's sometimes two times a week as well. And we pushed out a lot of episodes, and we get some really nice feedback on that. So many thanks, kudos to you, and
Thank you.
yeah, chapeau.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Rudi. It's a pleasure working with you. All right. And now have fun. We need to get back to the episode.
Yeah, that's for sure. Thank you very much. Lina, so the first thing what I have to ask you, as it's called Cappuccino with HR, hope you're drinking coffee. What's your favorite coffee?
I unfortunately stopped drinking coffee.
Okay.
I used to live in Italy for a couple of years, and I feel like drinking coffee just wasn't the same when I got back to Germany. But my favorite kind of hot drink is probably a chai latte or something basic like that.
Okay, that counts as well for cappuccino.
Perfect.
And then I would ask you to introduce you quickly yourself. So probably a few sentences, tell us about you.
Of course. Yeah. First of all, thank you so much for having me, and congrats for all the great work the two of you do on this podcast. So I'm Lina Pfeiffer, as you already said, and I'm here in kind of two roles. So my day job is that I work in the data science hub of the German Red Cross. So we develop data science solution for our welfare operations, and we provide data and AI literacy training for our employees. Welfare, just for quick context, is kind of the services that provide long-term support to vulnerable communities. So everything from like elderly care to youth services, health services, migration counseling, a whole range of things. And my side gig, which is also how I met Rudi, is that I manage the Climate Stories Initiative. That's a project I developed together with Google Berlin. And it started out as a cartographic archive for climate change destruction to kind of visualize the scale of the crisis and to involve people emotionally with climate change in order to motivate them to take action. And by now we have 10,000 daily active users across Germany, and we're kind of expanding into a broader initiative that focuses on education for sustainable development. And we're looking at it specifically through a tech lens. We, for example, work with the Ministry of Education to kind of train teachers so that they can be like multipliers to their students and stuff. So we have a nice little setup there.
And what was your initial motivation to have a look into it? I mean, because I mean, this was more or less initiated by you, and you won this wonderful Size Woman Award for this project, and I was really inspired by making. I mean, everybody's talking about climate change. There's a lot
Yeah.
of discussions, and everybody's. If I look on the political setup in probably in Germany as well as in Austria, but we
Yeah.
did a big step. We did a big step forward. Now I have the impression we're doing 2 steps back. Yeah, because
Yeah.
of cost cuttings. And I mean, the first thing which is cut is all what goes into climate. And what was your motivation, your personal motivation to
Yeah.
really initiate this project?
Mm-hmm. I think for me, like the idea came to me when I was just talking to friends about kind of the impacts they had seen and we all had seen of climate change in kind of our natural environment. And I felt like the discourse we have of climate change in society right now is still that it's somewhat of like a distant future concern. And I think it's very abstract for people, especially in Europe. Where I feel like we often talk about like crises that are happening in the global south or how this is going to impact future generations, but people lack an understanding of how this is already changing their lives now. And it is drastically already altering our lives at the moment, even in Germany and Austria and stuff. So I just really wanted to kind of create a platform to showcase this and also give people a voice in climate discourse. And the hope is kind of through showing the urgency of action and that this is not like a future concern, but a now problem, that people are going to start acting now. Because if we want to mitigate climate change, we're going to have to get running pretty soon because things are not looking too good. So I think the idea was kind of to give like a low barrier way for people to engage with this topic and see how it's impacting them like right in front of their doorstep, basically.
And as you have started with this initiative, you also started building up a community. I mean, because at the end of
Yeah,
the day, you have active
exactly.
users. This becomes and turns into a community. What is the reaction of your community uh, in respect of the really uploaded results? Because this visibility ends up in a kind of a reaction. Of course, it could be
Mm-hmm.
okay. It's there, but it's probably not as bad as we thought, or it's totally the opposite. What is the kind of the communication within the
Mm-hmm.
community that is related to what's uploaded and
Mm-hmm.
what is made visible?
On the map now,
Yeah. Hmm.
specifically. Yeah, I think so. I get a lot of positive feedback for the map, which is nice. Like people are, I feel like, very happy to be able to kind of share their experiences. And I think other than that, I've been getting definitely a lot of people's feedback that they've been kind of shocked by the scale of devastation that we already have, and
Hmm.
that looking at the map and looking at the things that people have uploaded really helped them to kind of rethink the way that they look at their environment and kind of be more observant of the changes that are already happening. I think
Hmm.
it's obviously difficult to measure how many people got active afterwards. That's just something you can't, I guess I would have to do like extensive user research or something. But yeah, I think it's a good space for people to get involved. And we're also working on kind of, because on the map, we can kind of identify clusters of certain issues that are arising in certain areas.
Hmm.
And we're now looking if we can expand the project into a direction where we can interfere on the ground and kind of work with those communities and work with policymakers
Hmm.
to try and mitigate these issues and see how you can solve them. So that's
Hmm.
kind of the direction we want to move in long term.
How easy or difficult is it to engage politicians as a kind to take it serious and to bring it forward in a way? Is there things going on, or is it still a kind of it's a community which is taking care about it and the rest is okay? Yeah, it's nice. Yeah, but
Yeah, I think right now we're still more at the community stage. Like we're connecting, like I've mentioned this previously, we're working with the Ministry of Education. So there I'm obviously connected with policymakers and stuff. Um, but I think this is still very much in the planning stages. Like I'm doing this project by myself. We're currently fundraising, and then I'm hopefully going to hire some people and we can kind of professionalize this, because I think if you want to work with politicians, they usually have like a very short attention span. So you really need to be on it.
To really get into this in contact with all these guys as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Another question. I mean, it sounds as it's a kind of for me, it sounds a little bit very easy. From my easy understanding, it sounds a little bit like it's a Google Map thing at the end of the day, technically. So
Yeah.
it's, for me, it sounds it's geographically easy expandable to all over the planet. So it's not limited to Germany or a region in Germany. So it could be spread out and rolled out all over the place if people are willing to step into this topic. I think that's really interesting. What is the geographic expansion at the moment of the community? Is it Germany or?
Right now we're focused on Germany, but we're actually wanting to expand globally next month. So that's perfect. We already have, I've already had like a lot of email submissions, weirdly a lot of people from Iraq. I don't know how they got onto the map. Maybe they read a lot of German media. I don't know. So we're planning to just roll out globally. I think that makes the most sense. It's, I think technically that's super easily implemented because we work with the Maps platform from Google Maps. So
have you already got some kind of negative kind of messages as well from people? So don't touch it, please. So like this kind of enemy thingy.
For sure. Like not on the map. We have pretty good like spam and harassment filters. So I luckily don't have to see those. Also was a lot of work to implement that. So I'm glad they're working. But definitely also in the workshops and stuff, I was honestly like when I work with the teachers, I was honestly quite shocked. Like I often do like a little survey in the beginning with everyone to kind of see where they're at in terms of climate change, like what their views are and if they believe in it and stuff. And I really thought that it was like common knowledge that climate change is happening, but that's not really, like, I think that's very much maybe in my bubble. And I was quite surprised to see how many people still have a lot of resistance towards the topic of climate change. And I think also in public discourse, like with climate activism, the topic has become really polarized. And it's kind of this thing where it's like us versus them, when this really is something like, this is one of these issues that really concerns all of us. And that is going to impact all of our lives, whether you believe in it or not, or whatever your political views might be. So I really would love to see the discourse kind of change into a direction where we think about this more as like a common crisis that we all need to solve together, rather than it being this like us versus them dichotomy. But I've definitely also gotten, like, especially when the whole media campaign around the map came out, there has been a lot of negative comments of people being like, oh.
And as you're working with the Ministry of Education and probably school, I think schools as well, what is the commitment that you feel from pupils and the younger generation? So really kids and young adults. What is their kind of involvement there? Do you see a positive trend there?
Yeah,
Are they
definitely.
taking it seriously?
I feel like they're taking it very seriously. And I think also because the narrative is framed so much that this is like a problem of the younger generations, which isn't necessarily true. I mean, it is true in the sense that they're going to probably feel the full scale of the crisis, but it's also happening now. And I think because of that, there's a lot of involvement from them. And I think a lot of them, from what I see, feel kind of frustrated with the older generation about maybe not getting involved as much. So I think there's also kind of like a conflict of generations in this, which is interesting. But I have a lot of hope in that new generation. They're very like on the topic and interested, and they're wanting to get involved. And they're also very creative in the ways that they are thinking about how to act sustainably and stuff, which is pretty cool.
I want to. I mean, you not only initiated this kind of initiative from the product point, let's call it product point of view. You also did some kind of probably a lot of programming yourself. So at the end of the day, you are also stepped into it as a kind of a developer, and as we are
Kind of,
developers.
yeah.
I mean, that's our prime target audience. So, what was the biggest motivation for you to do it also from software development point of view?
I think, yeah, I have like both a social science and also a tech background. So I think it was very natural for me to combine these two. And then I really wanted to use the Google Maps platform because Google Maps as a map interface is so accessible to people and people are used to it. And I think if you're wanting to minimize barriers to entry to a topic, you are best suited using a tool that people are already familiar with the interface. That's why I also try to like not change all too much about the design of the map and stuff, which you can do. So yeah, I think that's how I kind of got into doing it with the Google Maps platform. And for that, you need to use JavaScript. So I actually had no JavaScript experience previously. I mainly worked with Python and R and stuff because I have more of a data science background. So I kind of learned that from scratch, and that was super fun. I think that's the nice thing now with learning how to code and stuff, that there's so much information online that you can kind of, with a little bit of time, you can teach yourself. And yeah, I think I just like that kind of problem solving mentality that you have in development.
Have you already duplicated your resources or tripled your resources by use of an AI agent? So
not yet, no. I'm not yet on the AI agent trend.
Okay.
It's probably something that's going to happen at some point, but I feel like right now I don't super see like a use case for this in my scenario. And I'm very much like pro AI, but I also feel like you need to use it intentionally and purposefully and not just slap it on anything that kind of crosses your way.
I mean, from the aspect of sustainability, we should not use it for drawing ourselves as comic figures or something.
Exactly. Yeah,
So,
for sure.
I mean,
AI
it's fun to. I think it's fun to try it out once, but if 10 billion people on this planet are doing this, I mean, it's a lot of wasted resources.
all the time. Yeah, it's a lot of resources for sure.
I want to switch to your second leg and your second part of career. So it's the Red Cross, which is an initiative, I think, which has done a hell of a lot of good stuff all over the world for many, many decades now. And I think it's one of the most important organizations that are probably here on the planet. What is driving you to work for them? And I mean, they're probably not first in mind for software developers, because I mean, developers normally want to work for the other brands, the big tech ones, and probably smaller tech ones. But what is thrilling you working for the Red Cross organization in this kind of really technical environment?
I think I've always been really passionate about kind of social justice, and I do very much have like a strong wish to leave the world like a little better than I found it, at least. And I think in my life, the social justice component kind of came first, and then tech came second. Like, especially as a woman, I felt like I had very little contact points and role models with tech, although I always had a fascination for it. Like, I remember watching my stepbrother hack into the neighbor's Wi-Fi, and I was so impressed. But I kind of shied away for it for a long time until I took a Python class in uni, and then I decided to switch majors to something more technical. But I think it just seemed very natural to me to combine these two passions. And I really like that the things I develop at the German Red Cross are actually serving people and are kind of helping on a small scale to solve these huge global challenges and crises we're facing right now. And I think right now is like very much a time where we need to be thinking about these things, and where it's important that a lot more people kind of dedicate their resources to helping these type of organizations to continue doing the work that they do, because we really are in a critical time right now. Like, there's a lot of kind of global crises going on, and particularly climate change is really gonna exacerbate that still. So yeah, I think it kind of came natural that I felt like I wanted to work for an organization that
where do you think from your daily work, I mean, not from a global point of view, because it's difficult to answer, but from your daily work point of view, where do you think could technology and digitalization and all what you do support organizations like the Red Cross?
Mm-hmm. I think there's honestly a lot of application areas. I think in kind of tech innovation in the social sector, a problem I see that it focuses a lot on crisis response. So the German Red Cross both does welfare services and crisis response. And in the latter, there's a lot more innovation and a lot more interest from companies to get involved, because I think people just connect more with these crises because they're rare and they're so devastating in their imagery. So that really gets people active. But yeah, I really wish there was a little more attention paid to also kind of the digitization of welfare services and governments and stuff, because what happens when the immediacy of the crisis is over, and like who supports these people long term when they've been unhoused or when they're disabled or they've been displaced and had to migrate, that those are kind of welfare services. And there's so many areas that you can go into that as well. So yeah, I wish they would pay a little more attention to that.
I mean, what we see in all our studies that we're doing on a regular basis, we're asking some developers all around Europe from time to time, and we're trying to get a kind of a clue what's important for them, what becomes important for them, what was important for them, what has changed. And what we definitely see, there's two trends coming up. I think it's really the result of all the studies and surveys that we're doing is sustainability becomes an issue, well-being becomes an issue, mental health is an issue. Do you have a kind of an explanation for that? Especially if you look on yourself. I mean, I ask your private, Lina, now if you're meeting with friends, sitting together with, I don't know, whatever, chai latte, yeah, and what is concerning you most and what is thrilling you most in living today?
Yeah. I think what is concerning me most probably is climate change, to be honest, just because I think that's gonna so like drastically alter the way that we live and like change kind of the way that we organize our societies and stuff. Like if we don't really act on it now and meet like the 2-degree target, we're already not really on the trajectory to meet the 1.5 degrees target. So yeah, that's kind of the new goal. I think I read this report the other day that over like 350 million people could like suffer deadly heat stress. Probably by 2070, like the UN estimates that 1.2 billion people could be displaced because so many parts of the planet would become uninhabitable. And we already know what kind of larger surges in migration due to like the political foundations of European countries, with like everything moving kind of to the far right and stuff. So that's like a scale of migration we've never seen before. And I think, yeah, climate change also in terms of food insecurity and stuff, like it's just gonna impact all areas of our life, and kind of it interacts with a lot of other social issues we have. So I think that's definitely what worries me the most, and also what drives me, because there's so many application areas, and that this is something that is man-made and that is in our hands to change. And we just need to kind of drastically rethink and do this together to be able to kind of mitigate and avert this crisis best as we can.
Do you sometimes feel a lonely fighter, or do you see that as kind of important for your friends and then your generation as well?
I think it switches. Like there is a really wonderful community around this kind of climate change activism and stuff. Again, I think that community is also very fragmented and polarized at parts, and people love to fight about what's the best way. But it is a great community overall. But I think then sometimes when you have like huge setbacks, like you mentioned earlier right now with like funding cuts and stuff, and when you just see priorities shifting, it can feel really frustrating, and it is kind of a lonely process. And I would especially like to kind of see more innovation and like push for this in the tech sector. I feel like that's something that's been a little overlooked. Like I think now with AI, it's coming a little more into public discourse just because people are really concerned about AI energy consumption now that this is like commercially rolled out. But yeah, I wish there was still kind of a little more discourse around this in the developer space, because there's a lot of things we can do and ways in which we can get active and also hold the companies accountable that employ us and stuff. So yeah.
I mean, that is raises my next question. If somebody's listening to this episode and wants to get involved in tech for good projects, because I think the first step is always the most important and probably also the most difficult.
Sure.
The issue is so big, and sometimes we look a little bit. For me, it's a little bit the feeling that, oh my God, this is so big, I can't do anything. Yeah. But it always starts with a small first step. Yeah. Where do you think could people? What's a good way to start for somebody, for him or herself?
Yeah. So if you're looking to do something off the computer for once, you can go onto the Climate Stories map and you can immediately kind of get connected. At least this is in Germany for now, with sustainable initiatives in your area. So that's one good way to go about it. But otherwise, I would suggest, like, also we have this often at the German Red Cross, that people just get in touch with us directly. Also, a lot of data scientists and developers, and they ask if they can help us develop something, or if there's a project we're working on that we need volunteers for. And I think that's especially helpful for really small NGOs. Like I think the German Red Cross often is maybe still a bit too big because we need larger teams to solve our issues. But I think reaching out to smaller NGOs, they often really appreciate that kind of help, and they often have like low barrier needs, like improving their web design or automating like a small process. But there it's very important that you're kind of honest about how much time you can give and if you're willing to help afterwards with long-term maintenance. Because if you're just going to develop a product for them and then leave them alone with it, and they don't have the funding for an in-house tech team to kind of maintain it, that's not going to help anyone. You wasted kind of your time and theirs. But yeah, if you want to work on larger projects with kind of bigger teams for bigger organizations like the Red Cross, there's some really cool organizations. There's Data Science for Social Good, they're called. They also operate globally. There's Correlate. I think Develop for Good is another organization from the US, if I'm not mistaken. And Germany specific, there's Tech for Germany. They even have like a paid fellowship, which is really cool. And you can help digitize the German administration. And I think you're doing all of us a favor with that because it's such a mess. Yeah, and I think if you don't want to do any of those things, then it's always good to think about your own product or initiative and just get started on that and like open it up to the public for free, make it open source so other people can also do their own things with it and think this further and use it for other causes. I think, yeah, there's a lot of ways to kind of get involved.
That's amazing. And as we are also targeting, I mean, it's called Cappuccino with HR. So, I mean, big parts of our audience are coming from companies and HR organizations. And what could companies do to attract talents like you? What needs to be done to really create curiosity around the company itself in that aspect of sustainability and taking it serious and being on track? What would you give them as a tip? What should they put in focus?
Yeah, I think this has a lot to do with authenticity for sure. I think a lot of companies now use kind of sustainability as a marketing gimmick, but they're not really willing to fundamentally rethink the way that they operate. So I think to attract talent that cares about sustainability, they need to be willing to really change something on a structural level on how they operate. I mean, company activities have a huge impact on carbon emissions. There's this really famous statistic that 100 companies are responsible for 71% of greenhouse gas emissions. Obviously, these are mainly like fossil fuel industry companies like coal and gas and stuff, but also tech companies contribute a lot. And again, now with AI, like the commercial rollout of AI, that number is really increasing a lot. And I think companies have a big pull. And there's a lot of things that can be done. Like you can save a lot of emissions if you switch your operation to like low or no carbon by, for example, only relying on renewables. You can put a lot of funding into research on how to, for example, make data centers more energy efficient so you have less energy loss, and really make kind of research a priority. And you can also, honestly, I worked with Google's public affairs team, so I got a lot of insight into kind of their lobbying. And you can also use your lobbying powers and resources, financial resources, and that to kind of advocate for an actually sustainable and just transition politically. I think that's also something that's super underestimated. And what I would love to see is a lot more companies kind of cooperating with organizations like the Red Cross and kind of formalizing processes where also their employees can, for example, volunteer some of their time to those social organizations. And I think that would also be a huge benefit for companies, to be honest, because I think employees really like to see their work kind of serving people and like helping people out. And I think especially if you work in tech, sometimes you work on such big projects that you're like optimizing this tiny thing in the background that no user will actually properly understand. So I think there's a lot of value for employees to help actually vulnerable people with the work that they do. And also for companies, it's great because they can kind of, by providing their software to social organizations and kind of adapting that software to their needs, they can really rethink the ways in which they use or like kind of the use cases for their technology. And I think come up with additional revenue streams and like think newly about their product. That's something that I definitely also saw when I was working with Google and kind of used their map for like a different purpose, that I felt like even internally there was a lot of new ideas arising from this project, and that was super great to see. So I feel like really it is a win-win, both for the social organizations because they get help to kind of digitize and automate their processes, which is something they probably couldn't afford otherwise, or they just lack the expertise for, because they also can't match up with the salaries of like traditional big tech companies. And it's also a win for the companies because they get to rethink their projects, their products, and they have hopefully fulfilled employees.
Really, really cool. Last question, as we're really at the end of the session already. It's amazing. We could talk probably for another 1.5 hours. So it's really fun and inspiring listening to you. As we have Ivana in the back, and she's an elf, so you can throw out one wish. What would it be?
One wish. I think my one wish would be for people to realize the impact that they can have with their actions, and to kind of understand themselves as like an agent of change, and not fall into that belief of being like, oh, there's nothing I can do, or like my voice or my vote won't matter, but kind of understand that they really have a lot to give to this world, and that they can really help change the world to be kind of better. And I think it's very dramatic, but I feel like that's what I would love for people to.
I mean, you're really a young lady, and you stood up and made the climate change visible. I mean, the first time that I saw it in a kind of a map where you really can see what's going on, and I think that's amazing. And it was an initiative which was founded by one young lady, and I mean, the prize you got last year was well deserved, and 100%.
Thank you so much.
It ended up at the right person. So thank you very much. I mean, for the people who want to meet you and talk to you, we have our World Congress in Berlin from 9 to 11th of July, so very, very soon. And Lina will be there.
Yes.
And there's definitely the chance to meet her and to talk to her and to exchange thoughts and ideas with her. And thank you so much for being with us. It was a pleasure to have you in my Cappuccino with HR episode. And to all out of you, hope to see you all in Berlin and have a great time until then. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for watching Cappuccino with HR. If you enjoy this kind of conversations, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Then you get all this kind of upfront information, your upcoming episodes, and all my nice guests. Cappuccino with HR is brought to you by WeAreDevelopers, Europe's #1 developer community and a leading platform for connecting HR and companies together with developers. If you want to learn more, visit us on WeAreDevelopers.com. Thank you again for watching and see you next time on Cappuccino with HR.